Well, thank you, Milt. It's always a pleasure to get introduced by someone who's not only a great leader in our United Way network, but also someone who is in some ways a son of Atlanta as well, as a graduate of Morehouse College. He's come back to lead our United Way here in Atlanta and is a remarkable leader and a great friend. So thank you, Milt, and thank you for all that you've done to host so many young people here in Atlanta today. First of all, let me just say thank you for inviting me to be here this evening. This is a fabulous, fabulous gathering. I mean, I'm always so inspired to walk into a room of, 600 young people who are thinking about the ways in which they're going to leave here and change the world. That's an amazingly powerful thing to pull off, and it's not possible to do it without great leadership from an organization like the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance. And I want to say thank you to Michael Cruz and the whole NLA team. An amazing job. I think we ought to give them a round of applause. I just asked Michael, I said, isn't this a little hard on you guys to pull this off right after the holidays? He said, it sure is, but we get some really cheap rates doing it in the week that no one does it. Plus, our students are available and can come here. So what a smart move. And again, thank you all for inviting me to be here. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking to you about United Way and talking about nonprofit service, because what you all are embarking on as a career, as a passion, is probably the most important thing that any young person could ever be thinking about and be preparing for. And you probably got a lot of friends and a lot of colleagues back in college who are worried about employment, worried about the economy, wanting to get big-time jobs after college, maybe thinking about going to graduate school. And that's all good. But if at this point in your life, and God knows if I had been in my 20s or late teens, early 20s, and had been as crystal clear as some of you all are about what I needed to do to get prepared for a job in the nonprofit field, I sure would have enjoyed having this benefit at that point in my life, because I think it would have made it a lot easier on me in terms of my path. So again, it's just a real pleasure for me to be here, because I get really inspired thinking about the future of our country, the future of our world, because you all are here dedicating your time and attention to what it takes to actually change the world as you move forward. You all are really the future of our sector, and I don't say that sort of lightly. I really mean that. Your leadership in the work within our sector has never been more important. You all have a unique understanding of communities and of community needs and the strategies and the things you have to do to actually make a change in community. You all bring a diverse set of perspectives. I just met a young group of your colleagues just a few minutes ago, 6 or 7 of your colleagues who've been interning and working in local United Ways. Where are my friends that I met a little earlier? There they are, from Baruch. Yay, give them a hand. From Baruch College and Western Michigan and University of Central Florida. How about that? You guys understand community. You understand what's going on in New York and what's going on in Central Florida, what's going on in all parts of this country. And you bring a critical leadership role to this environment and to all the work that we have to do. Tonight, again, I do want to focus on United Way's strategic direction. I want to talk a little bit about and help you understand where we're going, where we've been, and where we need to go as a network at United Way. I also want to talk about the importance of collaboration, because one of the things we talked about earlier with some of these your young friends and colleagues is that as wonderful it is to think about working for a nonprofit organization, it is so important to understand that no one nonprofit organization can ever alone achieve the change that we need to achieve in this country or in this world. And so collaboration is so important. And young leaders are really the innovation leaders, the engines of innovation for how we're going to make change happen. And this growing network of results-driven efforts that young people are driving is going to be critical to how we want to think about community change in the coming years. So let me just start with United Way, talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at United Way. And Milt mentioned that I just recently became the U.S. president of United Way. just a few months ago. And after, yes. And I'm really proud of that, not only for myself, more importantly for the United Way Network. I started at United Way 3 years ago as the head of a group of professionals working on community impact efforts, working on our leadership efforts, our talent efforts, working on all of our learning and capacity building efforts. I was doing a lot of work. And I came to United Way because I actually understood that United Way was a fabulous organization. United Way I had been in my previous jobs at Fannie Mae, I had been a funder of a United Way. I had been a board member of a United Way. I had been a volunteer with a United Way. I had seen, because I grew up here in Atlanta, and I had seen the leadership of fabulous United Way leaders here in Atlanta. I had seen a really terrific United Way operate in Atlanta and in many other communities around the country. I knew what United Way had been, and I understood that United Way had this fabulous history. Last year, we just celebrated our 125th anniversary at United Way. And it's really terrific to say you got 125 years of legacy behind you. But it's more critical to think about what your legacy will be 125 years out, looking back to today. So what are we doing now over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years? What am I doing in my position to lay the groundwork for a network that will change this country, that will change this world? And the fact of the matter is the way that we have done it for 125 years, the way we've even done it for the last 20, 25, 30, 50 years, is not really how we need to do it over the next 5, 10, 20 years and more. Today, we are a network, as Milt mentioned, of 1,800 local United Ways all around the world. We're United Way worldwide. We're no longer United Way of America. We have a U.S. network with about 1,200 United Ways, but we are a worldwide network, and the U.S. is a huge part of it. We're in 41 countries. We raise about $5.1 billion every year. And that's not an endowment, that's every year. And we have lots of people that work for United Way, but we have 2.5 million volunteers, board members, and other folks that volunteer with us. We really are an entity, we see ourselves and we see our mission as an entity that will mobilize the caring power of communities to improve lives around the world. We're the largest privately funded nonprofit in the world. And for the last 40 years, we've seen ourselves as what I would call the community fundraiser. We raise the money, we give it out. We raise the money, we give it out. And the money is really critical because nonprofit organizations cannot do work without resources. And putting resources into very effective operations, nonprofit organizations that are doing fantastic work that we can actually measure and see the results is really critical. But being the community fundraiser, without tying to community change at a community-wide level, we found was something that we were struggling with. And we found that just being able to count that we raised money, that we met certain fundraising goals was not sufficient to solve the challenges that we see in so many communities in this country and around the world. Today, our environment is very different. Today, it requires all of us to reassess our roles and our strategies. We have compelling human need all around the world. We have 72 million children who are not in school. We have 1.4 billion who live in extreme poverty on $1.25 a day. We have more than 1 billion people who are currently undernourished. And here in the U.S., we have our own challenges, as you all know. 1 out of 4 young people will not graduate from high school. We have 46 million people who live in poverty in this country, in the richest country in the world. We have made a lot of progress, and it's been because of United Ways and a lot of other organizations that we have made progress. We know that conditions could be a lot worse had it not been for a thriving nonprofit sector. But we also know we need a new social contract. We need to have new definitions of success that are not based on amount of money raised, that are based on people and people's lives and have those lives improved. We need bold and sustainable goals. we need more collaboration. Now, I come from Washington. I know about collaboration. There's some other people, they're trying to figure it out, right? In Washington. But in communities, we understand collaboration. We understand how we have to integrate together, sectors working together, government, nonprofits, and business, all working together around common solutions. We have to have shared agendas and shared accountability. The goal has to really be genuine systems change. It's great that we have good programs that make a difference with some people and a few people. That's important. But fundamentally, what communities are needing, what countries are needing, is real systems change. And we fundamentally believe that there is no economic success in this country or anywhere around the world without enduring human success. So, in light of all this, what's our response? Well, at United Way, we're thinking about how we deal with this issue and all these issues. And we're actually thinking about how we got started back 125 years ago. 125 years ago, United Way got started in Denver. It was in the midst of the gold rush, and a lot of people came to Denver thinking they would hit it big, thinking they would, hit their fortune, and guess what happened? It didn't happen for a lot of people, for most people. And so in Denver, you had this incredible degree of poverty and homelessness on the streets in the community of Denver. And faith leaders looked around and said, well, we want to help people, but it's too much. It's too much for my synagogue. It's too much for my church. So I can't do it alone. So they got together and started talking about their individual challenges of serving the people that they thought they were there to serve. And they decided that it would probably make more sense to do it together. And so these faith leaders, and it sounds like a really bad joke, but it's true. It was a rabbi, a minister, a priest, and a woman. And a woman always has to be there to make it all work. No offense to my male colleagues, but I just had to say that. Got together and said, we actually could solve these challenges in Denver, but we have to do it together. We have to do it collectively. And so for those of you that heard the term collective impact, I believe United Way is the original example of collective impact. Now, along our history, we kind of moved again into this community fundraiser role, but today we're back. We're back to being that entity that sees that all sectors together, working together, can solve our challenges. We're focused on advancing the common good by creating opportunities for a better life for all. Our focus is, if we're creating opportunities for a better life, it's got to be on what are the three things that create opportunity. What are the building blocks for a better life? And they are education, financial stability, and health. We've organized our U.S. network around some big, audacious goals, BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. They're 10-year goals. We set them in 2008 with an outlook to 2018 to do three things. One is cut by half the number of young people who are dropping out of high school. This translates to moving to a graduation rate that's about 90%. We need 600,000 more kids graduating from high school by 2018. We're on our way, but we have a lot of work to do. The second goal is cutting by half the number of lower income working families that lack financial stability. The third is improving by a third the number of youth and adults who are healthy and avoid risky behavior. So we set these long-term goals, not necessarily just for ourselves. We really set them as aspirations for all of us to work on together. Because again, we know we can't do it alone. We believe that if we do this kind of work together, this kind of inclusive effort is essential for long-term success. And it's a platform for community success in every part of this country and everywhere around the world. We set our direction, and we think we know what works. We know that we're now focused on executing against this new direction, and we really fundamentally believe that the only way to create this kind of change is through this broad collaboration. Again, I really urge you all to read the papers that have been in the Stanford Social Innovation Review written by Mark Kramer, if you haven't already. Of course, you guys are really smart, so I know you know all this stuff and you've read it. But if you haven't, I really urge you to read the articles around collective impact, and especially focus on the role within those articles of the backbone organization. The backbone organization is the organization that sort of serves as the hub that galvanizes and convenes all of the community players to come together to make solutions. That is the United Way business model. When we can do it and when we're able to do it, and increasingly my job is to make us more able to be this, is to be the backbone for the kind of community problem solving that so many communities need. Now, we know that this requires a lot of engagement of partners and of people. And we're starting to make a lot of progress on it. We have a lot of ways to go, but I want to give you some examples of where I think it's working. Of course, I could certainly talk about where it's working here in Atlanta, but I'm also give you some examples in other communities as well. So let me share one in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Our United Way, who's from Winston-Salem? You got a Winston-Salem, good job. So Winston-Salem, North Carolina, United Way and a bunch of community folks came together and said, we've got to do something about the high school graduation rate. It was 64%, 64%. Nationally, it's about 10 points higher. So their strategy was to develop this Prep for Success Academy. And this is how it starts, and it's going to grow from here. This is a collaborative, volunteer-driven. It's starting as an in-school tutoring and counseling program with wraparound services to help young people be able to stay in school, get the support they need, and all the wraparound services that they need to be able to support themselves and their families to stay on track. The focus is on the highest risk 9th graders and 6th graders. They work with the YMCA, they work with local businesses, nonprofit organizations, the school system, everybody's at the table. They started this a few years ago. The results have been a 40% decrease in 9th graders failing in just 2 years, 87% increase in math scores for the 6th graders, and a 151% increase in reading scores for the 6th graders. It's pretty good. Let me give you another example in Milwaukee where this collaborative approach is really working well. They're tackling an issue that very few people want to tackle. It's an important issue, but it's also a little dicey, and it's around teen pregnancy. Teen pregnancy in Milwaukee a few years ago was at a crisis level. There was a list, I remember, several years ago of the cities at the highest teen pregnancy rates, and Milwaukee was at the top of it. And the mayor of Milwaukee said, absolutely not on my watch will this happen. And there were several news articles about it. And there was beginning to be a better understanding of not only what the issue was, but the impact of high teen pregnancy rates in Milwaukee, what that was doing to healthcare costs generally and other issues in Milwaukee, poverty, teen poverty, family poverty, infant mortality. What we knew then and what Milwaukee knows is that children born to teen moms are 50% more likely to fail a grade and much more likely to drop out. Boys that are born to teen moms are more than twice as likely to become incarcerated as teens and adults. And girls that are born to teen moms are 83% more likely to become teen moms themselves. So despite their efforts, the teen birth rate continued to outpace the national average. In 2002, again, it was at the top of the list of the worst in the whole country. So what did they do? The mayor, the United Way of Milwaukee, serving as that hub, that backbone, with the public health department, they even recruited local companies and convinced the local companies that their health care costs were too high because the teen pregnancy rate was too high. So they brought the companies to the table. They brought the school system to the table, parents, teachers, all around a comprehensive community-wide teen pregnancy prevention effort. They're doing public awareness campaign efforts. I mean, if you go to Milwaukee today, you'll be amazed. I'm sorry if I'm going to offend somebody by saying this, but it's going on in Milwaukee. There are billboards with boys that are pregnant. They have shocked Milwaukee into understanding what an issue this is and how we have to care about this issue. And this is how social change starts. This public awareness campaign has awakened people to the crisis among young people in Milwaukee. And that public awareness campaign was also funded in part by the public schools and local newspapers and others. The United Way and other local foundations started a collaborative fund and asked various donors and funders to participate. United Way and others partnered together, the school system, parents, local businesses, the Milwaukee Health Department to build relationships with young women to actually engage young women in finding their own solutions to these issues and providing greater access to health care. Partnering again with the schools, they started targeting parents to help parents be able to be better agents of intervention for the challenge. Importantly, they set a goal. They set a very aggressive goal. They said they wanted to reduce births for young girls between ages 15 and 17 by 46% by 2015. Today, by this year, Milwaukee will have met their goal 3 years early, reducing it by 46%. Now, there are a lot of examples, even one in India, in our United Way in India, in Mumbai, where a small team of United Way professionals in Mumbai decided that they wanted to do something to raise awareness and educate people around the dangers of malaria. And our United Way, our little bitty United Way with 5 people in Mumbai, partnered with 52 area colleges to train students to become volunteer health educators. When they put out the call for this, the response was incredible. They couldn't believe it. They got more than 2,500 students to participate. And instead of this sort of one-size-fits-all approach to what they wanted to do, they identified the specific educational needs of the vulnerable groups that they were trying to target. They figured out how to reach all of the different folks that they were trying to reach out to. They distributed pamphlets, they went on home visits, they put on educational street performances, they hosted awareness rallies. Public service really is a powerful tool. A half a dozen individuals inspired more than 2,500 people to action, and in turn, they directly reached more than 500,000, 500,000 Mumbai area citizens to help educate them on the dangers of malaria. And what they are beginning to see is malaria rates decrease by a substantial amount. So what we know about how change happens is that it happens when we work together. It happens not only when a bunch of bigwigs get in a room together and decide they know the answers to all of the community's problems and that they're all going to figure it out together. It happens when everyday people get involved. It happens when average individuals decide that they're going to care about these community issues and do something about it. And our model at United Way, when we talk about collective action, it's not about just collective action and impact among institutions. It's also around engaging individuals in being involved in the change that they want to see in communities, not a change that United Way will dictate. We go through a very intensive process on engagement to hear and learn authentically what people in communities want to really care about and how they want to be involved in that kind of change. So the point I want to leave you with today is that the only way this work ever happens, you never heard in any of the examples I gave you that there was any kind of widget ever produced that made these kinds of outcomes happen around teen pregnancy reduction in Milwaukee, or some kind of newfangled product that got produced and some assembly line of things that got done. Our work is not about manufacturing and widgets. Our work is about people helping people. It's all about people. And so fundamentally at our core, if United Way is not fundamentally caring and dealing with and deliberately driving talent management, attracting the very best talent at every level in our network, we will fail to do what we aspire to do, and we will fail in communities because we will not have the best, most passionate, most motivated people to do the work that we need to do. And that's people from all walks of life, all kinds of experiences, who we need to attract to the United Way network to be able to build a pipeline of high caliber leaders, the next generation leaders for our network and for the nonprofit field in general. We have had some amazing efforts at talent across our network, but we're just at the tip of the iceberg, I believe, of doing what we need to do to be able to make a huge difference to attract the kinds of people we need to attract into our network. And so one of the things that I just want to leave you with is this notion that we have for ourselves, which is our challenge, is how do we continue to attract and do the work that we need to do to attract the kinds of bold leadership that we need to tackle the biggest challenges that any of us will face over the next coming years and the next generations for sure. Ultimately, it's all about meeting this compelling human need. And this is a special room of leaders, I believe, who are highly capable to help us meet that human need and to accomplish some really remarkable things. Talent is the driver for organizational performance. Strategies cannot be developed on their own, and they cannot be implemented on their own. They have to be developed and implemented by really strong, smart people. Creating the kind of lasting change that I talked about that we have just seen starting in some of these communities, but that will need to last and sustain in so many communities, won't be possible if we don't get you all involved in our work and if we don't get people outside this room involved in the work. That's how social movements really start. And so moving forward, I'd really like to challenge you to ensure that you continue to set bold and shared goals, to understand that we are all interconnected in all the work that we're doing, that it's important to have a strong knowledge of what works and how to achieve measurable results with strategies that will make a big difference. That partnership and innovation ought to always be at the top of your mind. How can I do it better? How can I improve? How can I learn? And that you'll always remember to innovate. Because the moment you think you know it all is the moment we know that we're about to fail. Because we frankly don't ever know it all, and we're always learning, and if we're not, we always should be. You are a catalyst of change. I believe I'm a catalyst of change. And I believe I can be a better catalyst of change if I'm being a catalyst of change with you. Our communities are urging us, they are dying for us to be the kind of leaders that we're being trained to be the kind of leaders that we're aspiring to be. Those competencies of being a great leader have to really revolve around things like knowing how to build and form great relationships, how to be collaborative, how to be results-oriented, how to be politically astute, how to be drivers of innovation, how to be risk takers. And so as nonprofit professionals, you're in a unique leadership position to drive this kind of change across the nonprofit sector. I can't tell you again, and I can't tell you often enough, how pleased and honored I am to be with you tonight. You are a group that, as I go through the rest of my weekend, and I'm going to be leaving here pretty soon, I'm going to continue to remember all of the great faces and the passion that I remembered when I was 20-something years old, but I still think I have it. And I know I have it. But I want you to know that I know you all are counting on me to do a good job, and I'm counting on you to do a great job. Again, there is no economic success in this country or around the world without lasting human success. So I want to say thank you for all that you do for communities. I want to say thank you for all that you're doing for United Way and all the other nonprofit organizations. And I have one more request for all of you. This is a shameless plug. I want you to be my followers on Twitter. If you don't know it, it's SDS Lives United. So please follow me, and please allow me to follow you too so I can track you down whenever I need to track you down, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, I just wanted to thank Stacey for coming, and I hope you all enjoyed the remarks as much as I did. I met Stacey just today for the very first time, but I feel like I've known her for a very long time because we have a lot of shared experiences, and she's just a fascinating and committed person to the sector, including meeting with students who've already done some work at United Way today. So thank you very much, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.